Okay, so I'd like to welcome Gene Kamenez to the podcast. If you've not heard of Gene before, he's the co-founder and CEO of Uxcel. Especially if you're a UX student, you're probably quite familiar with his platform. But it's nice to have you on, Gene.
Hey Dale, thank you, and thank you for having me on board.
No problem at all, no problem. So maybe we can obviously I briefly mentioned who you are and what you do, but maybe you could just introduce yourself. Obviously, maybe a bit about your background. We can maybe delve into it deeper later, but maybe just talk about who you are and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just start from my professional background.
Yeah.
I've been in design before starting UXL probably for 8 years or more now. I
Okay.
think it's about 12 years, mostly in
Mhm.
design, and I'm 100% self learner, as
Mm.
probably two-thirds of the design population these days are,
Yeah.
and that's basically was what kicked off the idea of UXL initially, being a self-learner
Okay.
and experiences all of this struggles,
Mm.
inconsistencies in educational content, etc. That's kind of
Yeah.
what led to the Excel idea, but we can talk about it separately. But yeah,
Sure.
been around for some time in design. Grew from freelance designer to UI designer to UX UI designer, eventually to the product designer working with big corporate and American companies. So like some of the work from exciting stuff, like tons and tons of freelance projects to more
Yeah.
boring stuff like hard enterprise and table driven designs.
Yeah.
But with a lot of complexity behind it. So
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of short in my professional background. And
Cool.
yeah, myself right now, I living in Poland, in Warsaw,
Okay.
for a few years now, and most
Mm.
of our team is also in Poland. And
Ah,
yeah,
nice.
so that's kind of short.
That's cool. That's cool. So, obviously, you mentioned before that you were a self-learner. Was
Right.
there, like me as well? We're both here, sat here, self-learners. What was kind of the inspiration behind kind of maybe first of all becoming a designer, and also doing it the self-learning path? Because obviously, if someone is thinking about becoming a UX designer, UI designer, or even a researcher, there are many
Mhm.
different avenues that you can enter the field. There are obviously getting maybe a design degree of some form, or psychology or something like that. There's a few different ways you can get into the field, or maybe a boot camp. There's many choices. Sometimes it can be
Right.
overwhelming. So for you, what was the reason behind this self-learning path?
Yeah, this is actually a great question, and there are so many reasons and so many ways you can get into design.
Mm.
I'm myself an engineer. I have a
Okay.
bachelor degree in engineering, and I was really good in mathematics, physics, and all this stuff. So I'm not like
Hmm.
really conventional designer.
Okay.
I'm not coming from the artistic side of things. I'm
Hmm.
coming from understanding, the processes behind constructing things, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what's been my forte probably in design is like
Yeah.
deconstructing everything. And I was always advocate for hey, designers need to understand at least HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It just makes them better professionals, better communicators with the peers, and this
Mm.
in the same folks in the team, like front end devs, etc. But
Mm.
yeah, like what brought me to design is I think a couple things. First is I absolutely didn't like development. I tried it. I tried Java. I tried everything. I was
Mm.
like, okay, this is boring. Like, searching for like where you wrongly put comma or semicolon or something like that for half a day, and your code doesn't
Sounds
work.
exciting.
That's Yeah, it doesn't sound like me. And I mean, I understood a lot of things, but I was like uh, not I'm not I wasn't loving it, I would say, and I decided, okay, that's
Mm.
not my passion in coding. And I think started exploring design somewhere into like mid years of university
Mm.
years. And yeah, I started mostly from some graphic design projects like simple websites, landing pages,
Mm.
logos for relative, like not relatives, but friends, family,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And it opened a little bit more of the creative side of me, and this is what I
Mhm.
liked very much. And on top of that, that's kind of how I started my career, is mostly freelance work. Wanted
Mm.
to have this independency back then and
Mhm.
freedom, I would say.
Mm.
Of course, I love the idea to having to work with a laptop on my laps on some beach, right? But it never happened. I mean, it happened, but like for once a year, right?
Yeah,
Like for a couple of
we've all
days.
done
So
it.
it does. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't really count. But anyways, it gave some portion of freedom. It gave
Mm.
some creative juice, like much more. I would say problem solving, nothing like.
Mm.
mm the way, for example, developers solve it, which is also amazing, like deep thinking, etc. But like more of maybe like a high strategic level and all this stuff.
Mm.
And I loved it, especially when I started to get more into product design, UX topics, because
Mm.
the first several years, of course, you just practicing a lot.
Yeah.
UI craft, all craft, you understand it. And I happened to start with UI because it was on the surface back then in terms of educational material. It
Okay.
was at least somehow accessible
Okay.
because any of the UX related stuff in my country wasn't at all accessible. But there were
Okay.
honestly no jobs in the country around that.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of the way. And yeah, getting into design, product
Mm.
design, and yeah, later on probably expressing my this independent thinking and like starting a company. So I think it all led to it.
That's cool. That's cool. And yeah, I can see, obviously, going back to what you said about being obviously engineering. I'm not mathematical at all. So straight off the bat, it wasn't really for me. Um, but yeah, I can also see the benefits of obviously understanding that side of things because
Mhm.
being a UX designer or a researcher, you are obviously a part of that handoff or you are handling the handoff to the engineering team. So if you do understand their lingo, their talk, how they think, it obviously is a benefit. So that's
Absolutely,
cool.
yeah.
That's cool. And in terms of maybe any difficulties you encountered, because obviously you set up your Excel later in terms of like
Mhm.
supporting self-learners. You mentioned that like material UX stuff wasn't really accessible in your country.
Right.
Was that the main kind of challenge or obstacle you had to face, or were there any other challenges?
Yeah, I would say two of them. Like first is not accessible material. Second is lack of UX related jobs. Like most of the jobs were
Yeah.
like web designer, like very very broad.
Mm.
And when you come to the company, you basically do anything, like
Yeah.
logos, promotional materials, the booklets, and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So
The traditional graphic designer.
yeah, it's like there is this joke, like, "Hey, are you a programmer? Can you fix my TV?" This
Yeah.
kind of stuff, but apply to the design.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the challenge to the actual work, and that's kind of why I
Hmm.
went to freelancing because then it opened the doors for more of the international clients where you have much more work,
Okay.
much more specific work. I focused for 3 years specifically on app, iOS
Mm.
specifically app design, which was amazing. I think like in 3 years they churned like maybe 60 or 70, fairly little
Oh well.
projects. Few of them were big, but because it was mostly UI work, it was
Mm.
not that hard, I would say. I mean, it was
Okay.
hard at the moment, but looking back. But the main challenge was, and I still think is the education part
Mm.
and the lack of materials. Back then it was almost absent.
Mm.
I started iOS design with one book, and there is only one book in the market about iOS design. Just when it got out.
Yeah.
And if you talk about other design things, you need to buy some CD with some lectures or whatever by some dude
Mm.
who you don't know and start learning Photoshop and some techniques, mostly in photo retouching, but you start to buy to
Okay.
design, etc. So those kind of material quality was back then.
Mm.
Today you have much, much more, but again, a lot of them are not structured, and a lot of them only
Mm.
touches the very, very, very surface level. It's like, okay, how to
Hmm.
get into Figma, then it's done. Nobody
Yeah.
teaches you very, very deep stuff,
No.
especially on comprehensive topics. And
Mm.
what you end up as a professional is when you learn in this environment, you have very scattered knowledge, let's say.
Mm.
You don't have a system. If you went to the self-learner way, right? You don't have a system, and you end up like missing some ground knowledge sometimes. It's like with grammar, and I'm not
Mm.
perfect, for example, in English grammar, and sometimes you do some very rookie mistakes,
Mm.
and that's in professional work is just makes it harder to work more efficiently.
Mm.
So I would say this is the main challenge, and still is, because the existing programs most often they cost a ton, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
they're not accessible at all for most of the population out there, right?
yeah.
Like big part of them are targeting only US folks, right?
Mm.
Who have different financial mechanism and leverages to to get at least into this program. But if
Mm.
you talk about somebody from Eastern Europe or other countries, like how the hell they can afford something like
Yeah.
$10,000 bootcamp, right? That's nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, like there is more and more resources appearing these days,
Mm.
single courses. But again, it's still mostly one
Yeah.
topic. It's still not comprehensive knowledge. It's still not building
Mm.
something, I would say, like complete picture of yourself as a professional.
Yeah.
That kind of thing is the main challenge, and that's kind of what we aiming to solve with our platform,
Mm.
basically, for
Yeah.
designers.
No, yeah, I completely agree. That was kind of the one of the main reasons why I became or yeah, chose the self-learning route. Mainly because of the financial burden that signing up to a boot camp can cause. Obviously, I'm not from Eastern Europe, but yeah, not everyone can access those sorts of prices. I had a family, have a family, and for me to give up the job that I had at the time, to pursue one of these courses just wasn't feasible, and obviously I didn't want to
Right.
like put my family through that, because also there's no guarantees of getting a job after a boot camp. That's kind of well documented.
Exactly.
I've met many designers who've, let's say, graduated or passed a boot camp and they're still looking for a job after a year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't want to run that risk of paying $10,000 for for a boot camp that
Yeah.
was gave no guarantees and gave the same, let's say, guarantees as self-learning does. So yeah, for me it was a no-brainer. Um,
Yeah.
and I did come across Uxcel while on my self-learning. So
Mm.
maybe we can go into that a bit. So how did that all start about? Obviously, you mentioned before that the idea came from obviously
Mm.
the journey that you had. What was kind of the catalyst after that? So you were a designer for a few years, became a product
Mm.
designer. What was the moment that you said, okay, I want to start this platform, and how did it
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, like I started as, it's about the journey of most of the designers, and especially
Mm.
back then, even more of them were self-learners. And what you end up having, you have a team with, let's say, several designers. And even designers cannot speak the same language sometimes, because
Yeah.
you lack the basic knowledge on some of the things. And I can like maybe, let's take just the simplest example, right? Like, a component, right? It can have a shadow, right? And
Mm-hmm.
developers name it box shadow, designer can have a shadow, somebody can say drop shadow, somebody
Mm-hmm.
can say like layer blur or whatever, right? I mean, this is like a very simple and stupid example, but it
Yeah.
would end up happening, right? You don't even have the same vocabulary on the same things,
Mm-hmm.
even within design team,
Yeah.
because everybody came from some guerrilla way of learning design.
Mm-hmm.
And second, if you want to bring this up to communication with product managers, with QAs, with developers, the picture is even worse. Like, they have their own terms. They try to communicate with designers. Every designer telling them different same things, which ends up with even more confusion. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say this was the main kind of core reason why I thought is like, hey, there is some big gap of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
big layer of knowledge which need to be filled. And yeah, that's kind of the base idea of Uxcel. And on top of that, how do we do this, right? And how do we merge this knowledge delivery and we respect today's world, right? Because another part of this idea is, me being educating with a lot of online courses, video courses, etc. And the biggest thing which I didn't like and I hated, to be honest, is, I mean, no offense to anybody, but I hate to watch somebody talking half an hour on a video. 50% about themselves and 15% maybe about something, but you're basically wasting half an hour, and it's very hard to focus on this video. It's very hard to go through all the materials, and you end up with very low engaging educational format. And kind of how I wanted to change this. And the original idea was like, hey, can we deliver this knowledge byte by byte, and like bite-sized approach? And that's how it all started. With quiz, with quiz-based education, where you have just little piece of knowledge, and like as short as like 10, 20, 30 seconds of time, you get in something wired into your brain, because it's not we're not just presenting you something, we're trying to mimic and we're trying to trigger some of the kind of mechanisms, because like we show you have the visual cue with the pictures, you need to analyze all this stuff, you need to actually make a decision, right? And you need to select the answer, which helps to remember all the things compared to just watching. So this kind of was the way and the original core idea. And I would say several months was kind of brainstorming how to do this, and then one day it was like, okay, what the hell, let's just go on Instagram and test it. Back then I had a Principle app, which is app for animation, and over the weekend created a couple templates, launched on Instagram. Back then it was account was named Uxcel, and I think in a couple of weeks nothing happened. There was a few engagements here and there, but I took like very MVP kind of approach. We were constantly iterating, getting people's feedback, improving all these little templates. And like in months or 2 months, it spiked. I got like 40,000 followers, I think, in 40 days or something like that, with no money spent. I think 100,000 followers in 3 months was the thing. And it's like, okay, seems this is a legit idea. And we gathered a small team back then, and built a MVP, like I would say pre-MVP, tested it, and it's a story. It's a history,
nice. That's cool. So just to understand correctly, so when you say on Instagram, you were creating these, I don't know, these like, let's say tests or lessons as like an Instagram post, and then you were kind of getting
exactly.
Okay. Exactly. So when did it become an app? Was it like directly after, or?
Yeah, I think it took like almost a year.
Okay.
From original idea to releasing the first complete version, for the first public version of the app.
That's cool.
And finally, last August, we launched the mobile apps. So we were for 3 years running as a web app. Now we have mobile apps, and this is exciting. Actually, this was one of the first things we wanted to do, but there were some challenges. So.
yeah. Usually the way is web and then mobile afterwards. But that's cool. That's cool. And how big is the team now?
We have 14 people full time. We all working remotely. Most of us are spread across Europe. We have several locations, and we have also a few contractors, here and there, on several tasks. But mostly 14. We are, pretty lean team. Pretty like we value effectiveness over busyness. So this has been like a good driver for us in terms of not bloating the team and keeping it pretty small, and still delivering enough results in order to drive value for the folks, to drive growth.
Sure.
So
that's cool. Obviously I don't want you to give any secrets away, but what are your kind of goals or like visions for Uxcel? Are there
Yeah,
any things you want to do with it kind of moving forward?
yeah.
Obviously, don't give too much away.
No worries. That's like the big goal is to be the most comprehensive UX education platform, democratize design education, worldwide. Like I
Mm,
want to anybody who wants to get into UX design to have a
mm,
completely clear path with
yeah.
learning materials, with anything related, which would require support along the way. And
Mm,
so it's not just courses, and you can see Excel evolving over these years. We had courses first, we had some fun games. Now we do have skill assessments, we do have
mhm,
practice on the platform. We're releasing really soon an amazing feature. We're gonna improve in the practice piece and
okay.
incorporating community-driven expert feedback. So,
Oh, okay.
um, you know, like think about it as dribble, but not with just like, hey, there's like meaningless screenshot most of the time of what you see in a
Oh, yeah.
dribble, but there is like task driven, like pretty comprehensive task driven project, and the feedback part is also framed into evaluating specific criteria depending on the
Mm,
project type, etc. And it is driven by the community and a selected expert community as well. So like the idea here is to give like tools to practice your skill and just get in as much feedback as you can,
mm,
which can help you to improve, to build your portfolio, etc. So the end goal for
mm,
us, like if we're talking about the end goal, is like to build and to have all the tools and comprehensive tools and platform for self-learners, for anybody to strive in UX design at any point of their career, from zero to
mm,
one, from one to so on. We support on any stage. We
mm,
support you with um, have this idea as well, and we're kind of building this as you as a designer, and most designers hate creating their own portfolios. Nobody has time for this.
mhm,
But what we will have in Uxcel, and you can see it in certain extent already, but we will build on that even more, is basically everything you do is automatically presented in your portfolio,
mm,
and anybody who will be looking to hire you will be able to see right away at a glance what is your professional profile without
mm,
you being required to prepare some fake portfolio, fake works, etc. Because we will
yeah.
be able to give insights on the projects you create, the skills you have, your strengths, your weaknesses,
Mm,
your, let's say, how you communicate with others, because like with engagement with the
mm,
community, right?
mm,
And this is all important. This is what makes the modern professional, right? For example, what you do in
mm,
LinkedIn, right?
yeah.
Like you're doing amazing work in there, but if you try to bring it to your CV or profile, like, okay, how do you do this? Like
Yeah.
you send the link to your LinkedIn profile, but then what? Like somebody needs to go there, sort of post, sort of whatever, they don't have access
Mm,
to that. So, there's all complex stuff. So we want to bring it in one place, we'll have it in one
mm,
place in Excel. So yeah, you have all the tools to shine and grow and consistently be an amazing design professional if you want to, right?
that's cool.
that's
Yeah.
that's important piece. That's the piece of self-learners, right? If you want to,
Mm.
you'll be one. If you don't, like nothing will help you. So um
That's true. It's a good way to look at it. That sounds really exciting. It seems like UXL is really going to, hopefully for you guys, become the kind of go-to place to, yeah, kind of speed up your career progression. Also, I like the fact that it's not only aimed at kind of entry-level UX students, but even if you've already got a job or you're 1 or 2 years
yeah.
into your career, you can still continue to learn and progress. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
our ideal goal is to kind of help you identify which level you are right now and show
mm,
you exactly how to get to the next one, what is
yeah,
required to get to the next one, what you expect to be paid on the next level, and help you get
mm,
hired as well. So that's another
that's really
piece
nice.
which will be that, like, giving you everything basically you need.
Nice, nice. That's cool. That's cool. Thanks for sharing all what's going on at Uxcel. Um, Before we do finish, I just wanted to kind of get your advice. Just for people who are probably listening now, they're using your platform, they're still trying to enter the field, find their first job. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for those ones who are maybe struggling, maybe looking for a job for a while? They are learning, whether it be boot camp, self-learning, whatever, but they're still struggling to get their first role or even progress through interviews. I know it's a
Mhm.
big topic, but do you have just some advice that you
Yeah.
you would like to share?
Yeah, this piece is always complex. It was
Mm,
complex for me to get in the first job. The first like real paid job is very very hard. Even back then, it's
yeah.
probably now as well. You know,
Mm,
especially if you're a self-learner, you got there somehow, right? You build yourself a system. You know, you got yourself educated. So try taking the similar approach to job search, interviews, etc. Is like you should expose yourself as better as you can imagine, right? So, like, think about like if you're looking at yourself from the side, right? And do you like what I see, right? Make sure you like what you see. Make sure it resonates who you are,
mm,
and it's in terms of like exposure. Make sure like you at least you know not good marketer, but you should market yourself, right? Like
yeah.
it's a modern world. You should understand how to market yourself. Invest in
Yeah.
this piece a little bit, watch some videos, understand
Mm,
what words to use. I've seen the beginner profiles, and they just have one sentence in their summary or resume. It's like, okay, just do some work, tell
yeah.
a bit more about yourself. There is opportunity out there. It's like show your passion
Mm,
or something like that. Of course, try to practice and expose some of the projects. If you happen don't having real clients, fake it
mhm,
and create projects like which will be as close as what you think or what you can find out there is real
mm,
project. Add it to your portfolio, not just basic template stuff. And that's the kind of the problem with the boot camps. A lot of the work
mm,
which coming out of the boot camps, they're the same. It's a templated
yeah.
work which is visible. You can spot it right away. So don't do that, I would say. Just do the work
Mm,
which will be nicer, better, meaningful, maybe even shorter.
yeah.
But in terms of finding work, I mean, there is different approaches. Is you can find several list of companies which you would love to work for, and I mean, it will take some time, of course, but you can either write to them directly, offering them. You can even apply for internships. I
Yeah.
mean, just get some experience, even if a couple months you won't get paid. I know it might be, everybody has different situations, but
Mm,
get a couple months of experience, and after that, it will be much, much easier. But, just keep
yeah.
trying. There's like limit, unlimited amount of companies and opportunities out there these days. Like, if you don't find a local, you can go remote. If
Yeah.
you, yeah, let's say if you know English very well, it opens up a lot of opportunities for you, right? A lot of platforms, a lot of
Mm,
gigs, etc. It's like I started. My first work was $50 gig on the freelancer.com. That's my first work,
mm,
and to get this one, I think I applied to 40 different gigs, right? Because I had a zero out profile,
mm.
but I did some works, and it was a $50 job. So, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just be persistent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yes.
that's the key takeaway, to be consistent. Like at the beginning of your career, you might have to take those, like you say, $50 jobs, or I did it, like I volunteered for a couple of months, and like in the longer run, it'll be more
Mhm.
beneficial. Maybe in that moment it's
Absolutely.
hard because you're thinking, well, I'm doing this work for free, and there are many people who say that, yeah, don't take free work and stuff. And I do agree with that. Like, don't be
Mhm.
taken advantage of. Like, don't be working like long 40-hour weeks getting paid nothing. That's obviously not ethical. But if you can make an impact somewhere, volunteering or just a bit of work here and there just to get some real experience, I think that is beneficial
Yeah.
in the longer run. and you will see the benefits. So yeah, no, it's really good advice. So yeah, and especially for people who are maybe from Eastern Europe or other maybe more underrepresented communities in the field, I think those are the best routes to enter the field, because maybe there aren't as many opportunities in these parts of the world. So yeah, so I think it's a good way to get noticed, and obviously then that self-branding, which is important. So thank you.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge with all this stuff today, and often is like, there are so many gig platforms, etc. It can be hard to choose, but also there is so much competition. That's why you need to understand how to self-market yourself better.
Exactly.
There is, market is quite big, but the offering is also quite big. So yeah, just make sure you stand out.
Yeah, that's important as well. Cool, thank you, Gene. I appreciate your time, and it was also nice just to go through kind of the journey of Uxcel and how that all came about. And obviously for our listeners, like, do you want to just explain how people can access this platform before we finish?
Yeah, it's quite easy. Just go uxcel.com, as uxcel.com, and you have a link to go either download the iOS app, Android app, or directly from the web. It's quite easy. You can try it out for free, and you have a membership to opt in. And if you want one, I definitely advise you to get one, because it opens up a lot of great resources we crafted over this year.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll share obviously the link to the website and obviously the app as well in the posting for this podcast. But thank you, Gene. Again, appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Dale, and thanks for having me.